This is not a story about money. It's a story about freedom and how Instagram wants to take it from you. A billionaire just spent $3 million on a watch he'll never wear, posted it on Instagram, and went bankrupt 6 months later. Meanwhile, a janitor in Detroit who's never posted a single photo of his possessions just quietly became a millionaire. The difference between them? A 2,000-year-old rule that Instagram's algorithm is designed to make you forget. You scroll through Instagram and see luxury cars, designer clothes, private jets, and million-dollar homes. Your brain screams, "I need that life." And suddenly your own reality feels small, insufficient, broken. You start buying things you can't afford to impress people you don't even like. Sound familiar? You're not alone. A recent study showed that people who spend more than 2 hours daily on Instagram are 70% more likely to be in debt and 85% more likely to feel financially inadequate. But here's what's really happening. You're being manipulated by the oldest psychological trap in human history, and the ancient philosophers saw it coming 2,000 years ago. When I spent 5 years studying the financial habits of both ancient philosophers and modern millionaires, I discovered something that changed everything I thought I knew about wealth. The Stoic philosophers had a rule so powerful that it could make you richer than 90% of Instagram influencers without ever buying a single luxury item. They called it the appearance paradox, and it states that those who appear richest are usually the poorest, while those who appear poorest are often the richest. Marcus Aurelius, literally the most powerful man in the world at his time, wrote in his personal diary how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself. But this wasn't just philosophy, this was financial strategy disguised as wisdom. Now, you might think this is just about not comparing yourself to others. That's what everyone says, right? Don't compare yourself to others. But that's not the real secret. The real secret is much darker, much more profitable, and it's exactly what Instagram doesn't want you to discover. Here's what the ancient philosophers understood that modern people miss completely. Wealth has two forms, real wealth and performed wealth, and they are almost always inversely related. The Stoics had a specific name for this trap. They called it the approval loop. Seneca, one of the richest men in Rome, observed something fascinating. He noticed that the people who displayed their wealth most aggressively were usually the ones closest to losing it all. Why? Because real wealth requires discipline, patience, and the ability to delay gratification. But performed wealth requires the exact opposite: immediate spending, constant consumption, and endless display. Take Dan Bilzerian, for example, Instagram's former king of luxury lifestyle, private jets, supercars, mansion parties. Millions of followers watched his every move. Then reports surfaced that he was tens of millions in debt, borrowing money to maintain the image while his actual businesses struggled. He fell into the approval loop, spending real money to maintain fake wealth. Think about it logically. If you have $1 million, you can either invest it and let it compound into $10 million over time, or you can buy a car, a watch, and some clothes to look like you have $10 million right now. But you can't do both. The Stoics discovered that wealthy people understand this paradox intuitively. They dress modestly, drive reasonable cars, and live below their means not because they're cheap, but because they're strategic. Every dollar spent on appearance is a dollar not working for their future. But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is where Instagram comes in. Instagram's algorithm is essentially a 2,000-year-old psychological manipulation technique, weaponized and automated. The Stoics called it the tyranny of other people's opinion, but Instagram calls it engagement. Here's how it works. The algorithm shows you the most extreme displays of wealth because extreme content generates extreme emotions: envy, desire, inadequacy. These emotions make you scroll longer, click more, and ultimately spend more. Instagram makes money when you feel bad about your life. But the philosopher Epictetus, who was literally a slave before becoming one of history's greatest teachers, figured out the antidote 2,000 years ago. He said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Pause for a moment. Have you ever felt jealous of someone on Instagram just because of what they posted? A vacation, a car, a restaurant, a lifestyle that made your own life feel small? If yes, comment "I felt it" below, because you're about to discover why that feeling was engineered on purpose. And if you comment, you'll see you're not alone. And that's how we break the approval loop together. This isn't just feel-good philosophy. This is mathematics. Let me show you how this works in real numbers. The average American spends $1,497 per year trying to maintain their social media image, clothes, restaurants, experiences they post about. That's nearly $1,500 annually spent on appearance alone. But what if instead of spending that $1,500 yearly on Instagram-worthy purchases, you invested it in the stock market's historical average return of 10%. After 30 years, that money becomes $271,024. Nearly $300,000 generated by not trying to impress strangers on the internet. The Stoics understood this principle perfectly. They knew that every moment spent thinking about how others perceive your wealth is a moment not spent building actual wealth. But there's an even deeper layer to this rule that will change everything you think you know about rich people. Here's the part that will completely change how you think about money. The richest people often look the poorest, and the poorest people often look the richest. This isn't an accident. It's a natural law of wealth accumulation. Warren Buffett, one of the richest humans who ever lived, still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. He drives his own car, eats at McDonald's, and wears suits from department stores. The world's richest man eats at McDonald's, while the guy renting Lamborghinis for Instagram is one missed payment from bankruptcy. Meanwhile, millions of people living paycheck to paycheck drive luxury cars and wear designer clothes. The ancient philosophers understood why this happens. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." But the real insight is this: wealth isn't about having money. It's about having options. And every dollar you spend on appearing wealthy is a dollar that reduces your actual options in life. Let me give you a concrete example. Person A makes $50,000 per year, saves 20%, and invests wisely. Person B makes $150,000 per year, but spends it all maintaining an expensive lifestyle. After 20 years, Person A has accumulated $400,000 and could retire early if they wanted to. Person B has accumulated debt and cannot survive 3 months without their job. But here's a real story that proves this point. Sarah, a teacher from Ohio, never posted about money on social media. She drove a 2010 Honda Civic, lived in a modest apartment, and dressed from Target. Her colleagues thought she was struggling financially. Meanwhile, Jake, a marketing manager in the same city, constantly posted about his BMW lease, expensive dinners, and weekend trips. Everyone thought he was crushing it. After 15 years, Sarah had saved $380,000 and bought 3 rental properties. Jake had $2,000 in his savings account and was 1 paycheck away from losing everything. Sarah understood the ancient rule: Jake fell for the modern trap. Who is actually richer? The one with money or the one with the appearance of money? The Stoics discovered that true wealth is measured not by what you can buy, but by how long you can survive without earning another dollar. They called this self-sufficiency. And it's the exact opposite of what Instagram teaches you to want. But why do some people escape this trap while others stay stuck forever? The answer shocked even me. Now here's the secret that millionaires use but never talk about publicly. They deliberately cultivate the appearance of being less wealthy than they actually are. This isn't about being humble. This is about being strategic. First, it protects them from people who want their money. Second, it allows them to spend less on maintaining appearances and more on building actual wealth. Third, it helps them identify other genuinely wealthy people because real millionaires recognize each other by behavior, not by possessions. The philosopher Cato the Younger used to walk around Rome barefoot and without a tunic, even though he was incredibly wealthy. People thought he was eccentric, but he was actually demonstrating the ultimate financial power, the ability to not care what anyone thinks about your appearance. Modern millionaires do the same thing in more subtle ways. Take Ronald Read, a janitor and gas station attendant from Vermont who never earned more than $20,000 a year. He never posted on social media, drove old cars, and shopped at discount stores. When he died at 92, he left behind an $8 million fortune. Meanwhile, thousands of influencers with millions of followers struggled to pay their rent. Or consider Alice, a librarian from Tennessee who saved $1.2 million by age 65 while earning a modest salary. She never posted about her investments, never showed off her growing portfolio, and lived in the same small house for 30 years. Her secret? She avoided what the Stoics called the display trap, the compulsion to show your progress to others. But here's what's really fascinating. When you stop trying to appear wealthy, you actually start becoming wealthy much faster. Why? Because you're no longer spending money to maintain an image. Every dollar that would have gone to appearance can now go to investments, education, or building assets. The ancient Stoics figured out that the fastest way to become wealthy is to stop looking wealthy. Instagram has figured out that the fastest way to keep you poor is to make you desperately want to look wealthy. So here's the question that separates the wealthy from the wannabes. Are you playing their game or your own? Because you can't win both. Here's how you can test whether you truly understand this 2,000-year-old rule. Can you go 30 days without posting anything about money, possessions, or lifestyle on social media? Can you go 30 days without buying anything to impress other people? Most people can't. They're so addicted to the dopamine hit of social approval that they'd rather stay poor than appear modest. But this is exactly the test that separates people who will become wealthy from people who will stay broke forever. Marcus Aurelius had unlimited power and unlimited wealth, yet he chose to live simply and think deeply. He understood that the moment you need other people to validate your success is the moment you've lost control of your own life. The philosophers discovered that true wealth isn't about having enough money to buy anything you want. It's about not wanting things you don't need. Instagram has built a multi-billion-dollar business convincing you to want things you don't need, using the ancient psychological triggers that the Stoics warned about 2,000 years ago. So here's the 2,000-year-old financial rule that Instagram doesn't want you to know. Real wealth is invisible, and visible wealth is usually fake. The moment you understand this distinction, everything changes. You stop scrolling through Instagram feeling inadequate. You stop buying things to impress people. You stop measuring your worth by other people's possessions. Instead, you start measuring your worth by your freedom, your options, and your peace of mind. The billionaire who bought the $3 million watch went bankrupt because he confused appearing wealthy with being wealthy. The janitor became a millionaire because he understood the difference. He saved quietly, invested consistently, and never felt the need to prove his worth to strangers on the internet. Remember what Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private diary, never intended for public consumption. how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does. He wasn't just talking about avoiding drama. He was talking about avoiding poverty. Every minute you spend thinking about how your wealth appears to others is a minute you're not spending building actual wealth. Every dollar you spend on appearing successful is a dollar that could have been working for your future. The choice is yours. You can keep playing Instagram's game, staying poor while trying to look rich. Or you can play the Stoics' game, becoming rich while looking ordinary. But you can't do both. Only you can choose which game to play, their algorithm or your freedom. The Stoics already chose 2,000 years ago, and their side wins every time. Which game will you choose? If this changed how you think about wealth and social media, subscribe to Feed Your Millionaire Brain with more ancient wisdom for modern prosperity. And tell me in the comments, what's one thing you've been buying just to impress others that you're ready to give up? Your future wealthy self is waiting for your answer.